right, we're going to review how to graph equations of a line. So you should pick the copy up of this. If not, you can get a copy of it off of Vision. What I do want you to write on the top somewhere, I want you to write linear functions review. Now, if you have a color, that would be absolutely awesome. If not, don't stress out. You can go ahead and highlight when you come back to class on the next time I see you. So when we're graphing lines, we have three really important things to remember. First thing we have to remember, first off, we have an equation of a line. My formal equation of a line is y equals mx plus b, okay? Y equals mx plus b. You have to know that. That's what graphs a line. M, that's called the slope. We talked about slope a lot last week. Slope is rise over run, okay? B is my y-intercept. My y-intercept means where my line crosses my y-axis, okay? So when I'm graphing a line, the first thing I need to remember is that the equation is in y equals mx plus b form, okay? What I mean by this is y is alone. So I'm going to take every equation and I'm going to solve for y, okay? Second thing, I'm then going to find b. B is always your constant. It's always that number that's by itself, okay? Find b. B is always alone. It's the constant, okay? B stands for my y-intercept. What does y-intercept mean? Where my line touches the y-axis on a coordinate plane. Step 3, I'm going to find m. Now notice in y equals mx plus b, m is always next to x, okay? M is the coefficient for x. So how I find m, it's always attached to x, okay? So once you find b and m, you're then going to plot them. You plot b first because we wrote it first. You then apply your slope. How you apply your slope, you do rise over run. So if we look at number 1, okay, I'm going to graph this equation. In order to graph it, the first thing I have to do is put it in y equals mx plus b form. Get y by itself. So what am I going to do first to get y alone? I'm going to add 12 on both sides. Okay, so I have 3y equals 3x plus 12. Okay, I'm now going to divide by 3 on both sides. So now if I come over here, I have y equals, so let's cross out, 3x divided by 3 is just x. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So I'm now going to come over here and say what m is and what b is. So find b. B is always alone. So my number that's alone is 4. Okay. My slope, which is m, find m is always attached to x. Notice there's no number attached to x. There's nothing there. What invisible number is there? 1. So m is 1. Now remember, when we're applying the slope, we have to do rise over run. So m has to be a fraction. So how do I turn anything into a fraction? Put a 1 under it. So let's write a helpful hint. Always make a fraction. Okay. All right, awesome. So now I'm going to plot b first because that was the first one I found. So b is on my y-axis, so I'm going to go up to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and plot a point. Okay. Now, because it's positive, my slope is positive, I'm going up 1 and to the right 1. Rise over run. So from this point, you go up 1 over 1, plot a point. Up 1 over 1, up 1 to the right 1, and keep going. Now, if you want to go in the reverse direction, instead of going up, you're going to go down. And instead of going to the right, you're going to go to the left. And connect your dots. And I have my line. Let's look at the next one. I have to get y by itself. That's the first thing I have to do. So, okay, so let me subtract x on both sides. So I have 5y is equal to negative x minus 15. So now I'm going to divide by 5. So I have y is equal to negative x over 5 minus 3. So if I come over here to write what m equals and what b equals, b is always alone, it's negative 3. M is my slope, it's attached to x. So it's negative 1 over 5. Okay? Notice when I write m, I'm not including x because x is my placeholder. It tells me that's where slope is. Alright, so I'm going to plot b first because I'm going in ABC order. That's what my directions told me. I do b and then I do m. So b is negative 3, so on the y-axis I'm going to plot at negative 3. Alright. Now notice my slope, I'm going to apply rise over run, but notice my slope is negative. So instead of going up, I'm going to go down and to the right. So I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 5, because rise over run. So from my point, you go down 1 because it's negative, and you go to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plot a point. Do it again. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plot a point. If you want to go in reverse order, go back to the original point I plotted on my y-axis. Instead of going down, I'm going to go up. So I'm going to go up 1, and I'm going to go to the left 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plot a point. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't see if it's going to go off my grid or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's going to go off my grid. If my graph's a little off than your graph, that's okay. It's hard for me to see it. But make sure you're going up and to the left 5, or you're going down 1 and to the right 5. And let's hope I can draw a straight line, which I can't. Hopefully your lines are nicer than mine. Okay? So now what I want you to do is I want you to graph 3, 4, 5, and 6 on your own. So what I recommend doing is pausing this video because I'm going to keep going on to the next page. So pause the video, solve 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then flip over to the back and press play again. Okay? So alright, so let's now look at x and y intercepts. So if you have a highlighter, I want you to go ahead and highlight everything just like we would in class. Okay? I want you to highlight this outside box too. Okay. X and y intercepts, what do they mean? X and y intercepts mean they show where the line crosses the x and y axis. So the x-intercept tells me where my line crosses the x-axis. My y-intercept tells me where my lines cross the y-axis. So how do I find them if I give you an equation and I don't give you a picture? How would I find them? I'm going to plug 0 into the opposite variable. So if I'm finding the x-intercept, I'm going to plug 0 into y and solve. If I'm finding the y-intercept, I'm going to plug 0 into x and solve. Okay? So let's look at this first example. It says find the x and the y-intercept. So you've got to set up two equations. So you've got to find the x-intercept. You've got to find the y-intercept. Alright, so how do I find the x-intercept of this equation? I'm going to plug 0 in for y. So every time I see a y, I'm going to plug in 0. This just goes away because it equals 0. So I'm left with 4x equals 12. So x equals 3. That's my x-intercept. So if I were to write an ordered pair, 3, 0 is where my line crosses the x-axis. Y-intercepts. I'm now going to plug 0 into x. So every time I see an x, I'm going to plug in 0. This just goes away because anything times 0 is 0, and 0 plus anything is just itself. Alright, so for y equals 2. So if I were to make this an ordered pair, my line crosses the y-axis at 0, 2. Now hopefully all of this is a review for you because you should have learned this last year in algebra. Okay? I expect you to do example 2 on your own. And I'm also going to leave this square blank, because I'm thinking of 2 other words that stand for x-intercepts. So I want you to see if you can come up with those 2 other words. You learned them last year. Let's see if you remember them. So I would pause this video, answer number 2, and then start number, and then move on to the next section. Writing equations of lines. Now everybody does this a little bit differently. Let me try to actually highlight this a little nicer here. When writing equations, what pieces of information do I need to know? Okay. Well, in order to graph a line, what pieces of information did I need to know? I needed to know what M was, and I needed to know what B was, right? So when I'm writing an equation, so whenever you hear the words equation of a line, you should write y equals mx plus b down on your paper. And then you need to find M and you need to find B, okay? So we're going to do this together. And I'm going to put a little example down here. We're going to use the point 2, 4, and we're going to use slope is -2, okay? So in order to write my equation of a line, I need to find M and I need to find B. You always find M first. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to write M equals and B equals, because these are the pieces of information I'm trying to find. So now I'm trying to find the equation of a line. So y equals mx plus b. So does any part of this information tell me M? Well, yeah, M is slope and my slope is -2. All right, so I know what M is. So I'm halfway done. Now I need to find B. So 2, 4. Well, that doesn't tell me anything about B, but I know 2 represents an x value and 4 represents a y value. So if I plug -2 into my equation, I now have y equals -2x plus b. So I need to be able to find b. So how am I going to do this? What I'm going to do, x and y are used as placeholders, okay? So 2 represents my x value, so I'm going to plug 2 into x. 4 represents a y value, so I'm going to plug 4 into y, and I'm going to solve for b. So 4 equals -2 times 2 plus b. So solve for b. 4 equals -4 plus b. Solve for b by adding 4. b equals 8. All right, so let me fill that in over here. Now, because I have found M and I found B, I'm done. I just have to write my equation. Y equals -2x plus 8. Why is -2 next to x? Because -2 is my slope, and my slope is always attached to x, and B is always alone. Okay? So now let's jump down over here to number 2. Same thing. When I'm writing an equation of a line, that's y equals mx plus b. What 2 pieces of information do I need to know? I need to know what m equals. I need to know what b equals. Okay. First thing I always find is m. Does this problem tell me anything about m? No. But it tells me 2 ordered pairs. Well, guess what? We can use our slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Or if you want to do the other way around. So I'm going to highlight my x values to keep my brain in check in one color. I'm going to highlight my y values in hopefully a color that looks just a little bit different. Okay? So now I have y2, which is 3, minus y1, which is 6, all over x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is 2. So 3 minus 6 is -3. 1 minus 2 is -1. So if I simplify, -3 divided by -1, that gets me +3. So now notice I am right where I was on this problem. So how did I find B? I plugged my ordered pairs in for x and y and solved. Now notice when I plugged x and y in and I solved for B, and then I wrote my final answer, x and y went back to their original form. That's how we use it. We use x and y as helper tools to get to our answer. Okay? So I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. So I have y equals 3x plus b. Now I have two ordered pairs. It doesn't matter which one you pick. I usually pick the one with smaller numbers. It really does not matter which one you pick. So I'm going to pick 3, 1. So I'm going to plug 3 in for y because it's in the y value. I'm going to plug 1 in for x because that's in the x spot. I'm now going to solve for b. Subtract 3 on both sides. So what does b equal? 0. Am I done? No, I have not written my equation. Just because you found m and b does not mean you wrote the equation of a line. The equation of a line is y equals mx plus b. So y equals 3x plus 0. 3 is next to x because 3 is my slope. Y equals mx plus b. Do I really need this plus 0? No. Y equals 3x, circle, and I'm done. So my expectation for you is to finish the problems on this page that I did not do. So do number 1, do number 3, and then do the other problems on the other sections. If you need more help, come talk to me. I hope everybody has a great day.